Hello, everybody. I'm your host, Zenitsu, and you're listening to the Digi Talks podcast, the show that covers various topics from news to meta developments and everything in between for the fine folks who love the Digimon trading card game. Just as a quick reminder, I do try to stream this live over on twitch.tv/Zenitsu, usually Tuesday nights around 9:30 Eastern Standard Time, as of right now. But fear not if you ever miss it. It's always going to be uploaded under the YouTube channel of Zenitsu as a video, and it's also on various podcasting platforms like Spotify for reviewing and listening pleasure. So please feel free to do that social media doobly-doo thing and leave that like, rating, follow, subscribe, whatever, depending on the platform that you're listening on. It really does help support the podcast, or at least we like to think it helps support the podcast. Today I am back with Jay Stewart, and we actually got a couple of interesting things on the docket for today. The big one is we know what the rule set for Regulation Battle Volume 2 is. We have a little bit of metadata to go over, and just our thoughts and opinions on so far the start of this year and what Bandai can kind of do to try to basically do better, in a sense, on how they could make Digimon have the same level of reach and popularity to try to not necessarily rival Pokemon, but do a little bit more to get out there.
Shorten the gap.
Yeah, shorten the gap, so to speak. So this brings us to the question of the week. Since question of the week usually originally was viewer submitted, make sure if you have a question that you want us to answer, feel free to type in the comments down below your question for us to answer for next week's episode. This week, we don't really have a viewer submitted one, so we're just going to go with a stock one. Competitive season is I was going to say riling up, but I think revving is probably a better word. And basically, what are you expected to, the question of the week is, what are you actually expected to play against when it comes to these store regionals and just, higher level events now that the meta is slowly starting to carve its way?
Yeah, so I think a lot of the meta is based on my personal opinion. I think a lot of decks from BT 2.5 are going to still be relevant. A lot of the meta-defined decks, early on, even though Purple Hybrid has already been hit with 2 cards being Jax Raid and also the ban on the Matt Ashita, the fact that even though those 2 hit, we're still seeing Purple Hybrid topping, and that's something to be definitely concerned with. So it's to me, it's just kind of understanding what was meta then, and if trying to understand, is there any of the new decks that can kind of help try to keep up with with the older decks, is kind of how I'm going to be focusing on the meta.
Yeah, so just coming over some of the early data that we have from store regionals and looking at Japan, it really does feel like the 2 decks you really want to be as prepared for as possible is probably Sakuyamon and Royal Knights. Granted, both of them got literally almost no updates in BT21, but those decks were already just that strong, and they look to continue to be very strong. As far as what I'm personally anticipating is basically I'm looking at things a little bit differently now, trying to transition to be more of a casual player than a competitive one. But from my competitive perspective, I think you really want to be anticipating Floodgates and Tamer Hate. I think those are probably 2 of the most meta-defining things that you can try to do to slow down or just stop the opponent's game plan entirely. And the decks that are really good at those 2 things are probably going to excel a little bit more than some of the other stock standard strong decks that we've seen before. Especially since we got a lot of protagonist decks that got updated and a lot of new tamers came into the format. That's kind of why I think that having a deck that has Tamer Hate is going to be more potent now compared to some of the previous formats that we've had. So that's something I would prepare to potentially play against. And then obviously like the good meta decks from last format that don't really change but didn't get worse. So I guess that leads us to the metadata. We don't have anything concrete. I mean, like, we do have a few things concrete, but we don't have any super majors in a sense, like no big 200 plus person event or even 100 plus person event. So we have a lot of small data to talk about. I do apologize for the insistent yapping, but we do have store regionals that are kicking up, and people are starting to report what had won. So we don't really have top 8 data for the majority of the store regionals. I think it's a bit of a shame that the English format side of things is really bad at data collection when it comes to smaller events. But again, we're more spread out compared to like some of the Asian regions. So it's probably easier for them, and they're more used to collecting smaller data sets than we are. So this is probably the time where we need to start upping our game on getting these smaller data sets so we can actually have some semblance and representation on what the meta actually looks like, rather than the feels that we kind of have to go with now. But as far as some store regionals, we do know a couple of first places. So we know that 2 Galactimons, this is the Black Galacti, not Galaxy Loop, just Galacti. He took a store regional twice. Ancient Guru, Red Base, took a store regional. Gallantmon X Antibody took a store regional. Sukuyamon, Imperial German, specifically Blue-Green Imperial German, and Demon Lords also won a couple of store regionals as of right now. So those are probably things players are going to be looking at, and decks that are going to be showing up in force, so to speak, to other store regionals. So make sure you're prepared for whatever those decks are going to hold in store. And we actually do have 2 store regionals that we do have like more concrete data sets for. So I guess we could start talking about those while I pull that up.
Do you want to talk about Nerd Rage first, or the other one?
We could do Nerd Rage. So I do know the store owner of Nerd Rage, or at least I think he was the store owner. He's a pretty cool dude. So it's definitely nice that he actually gave us some infographics to look at. Let me just try to size these about the best I can get it. So we have their breakdown. I believe theirs was 64 players.
Yes, 64.
Yeah, so we have their top 16 and top 8 breakdown. So just as like data sets go, you can see that the number 1 deck that appeared the most in top 16s was Royal Knights. And then the conversion rate was basically cut in half when it went into top 8. But it was still the most represented deck in Nerd Rage's top 8. So that's important to note. Some of the other decks that appeared in top 8 was Purple, Virus Imperial, Galactimon. Hey, it's not like he didn't take a store regional. Same thing with Imperial. Megidramon, which is kind of it's I don't know. I don't actually know how I feel about this deck. Is it basically just what's its face? Gallantmon? But like,
Yeah,
instead
Dark
of
Evolution.
instead of protection, you just kill yourself and reset. Like, that's basically Megidramon's gimmick, and then you're just passively milling the opponent and then dealing lots of damage. So like, it's a aggressive deck. But yeah, he appeared in top 8 as well. So that was Nerd Rage's top 8. Then the winner was Blue Hybrid with the red base. They're just running red floodgates and then some searchers and draw power, and it's just Ancient Guru. Not really anything special. We've seen this deck a couple of times, and as I already mentioned earlier, floodgates are like insanely important, and this deck can use basically red has almost every floodgate, like every good meta defining floodgate. So you can really customize how you use your floodgates in this deck. And because you're super aggressive with your low end, that allows you to be like pretty flexible with your top end. Their spicy tech is splashing in Seraphimon Ace, probably for a little bit more sustain, so that way they can stay in the game a little bit longer, and it also can help set up Shangreimon Ace. So, like, if you don't have Ancient Guru and you're going up into your level 5s, because you do have Jet Sylphie and they are running the Beowulf from BT 17. Yeah. Um, like, you have 2 points of Digimon you could aggress with as level 5s and then try to ace bait them. So, pretty solid, but the rest of the list is pretty stock. We've seen exactly what this deck is doing, and we've known what it was doing since BT 18 with the Duo Tamer inclusion. I think that's the only thing that I'm like. I could go over some of the other decks, but I'll just flip through them. I don't necessarily think they're super important because the majority of these are fairly well known. It's not like any new decks outside of Galacti has been taking up. Oh, I guess the Megidramon. So, looking at the Galacti, we actually do have a more concrete idea on what Galacti is trying to do. So if anyone's familiar with my YouTube video, yeah, it looks very similar to my YouTube video deck list. They're just running the new Galacti. They're split on the new Destro and promo Destro. I was running the old, like one or two of the old. I think I was more on some of the old snatches, but they're slimmer on the snatch count to try to up the removal option and possibly the tamers. But yeah, like the core of it is basically like the same concept for my YouTube video. Humble brag. And I'm sure a lot of Galacti lists are looking very similar to this. So that's neat. And then the other deck that's kind of worth mentioning is Megidramon. So they're just playing the Rush Gallants because you're trying to actually mill the opponent. So they're leveraging some of the mill tech. And as far as I understand, the base idea is you're going to go up into the new War Growl. War Growl's going to Digivolve mid-swing into the new Megidra. The new Megidra is going to deal lots of damage, delete everything else on the field, including... and then he dies as well at the end of the attack because he's blowing up everything. And then your on-deletes will trigger, and you basically reset your board, and you can continue the aggression. And then with the trash nice and healthy from both players' perspectives, that just allows you to play either the promo Gallant or BT13 Gallant for free to try to rush for game, or you just bring back Rush Geel and he does the same type of thing. So pretty solid deck list.
I will say there's a local in my local area. There's like a dedicated Galamon player fan, and he was trying to explain to us couple weeks ago that there was like some weird loop you could do with the BT13 Galamon and the new promo Galamon. I don't know the whole thing he was talking about was. So there might be even more spicy tech in the deck than I'm not seeing here for myself.
So the idea is the way BT13 Gallantmon works is he's already a 13k DP Digimon. So you want to get him out first to make that initial swing, and then the promo Gallantmon reads when you would play this card if there's a Digimon with 13,000 DP or more, so that includes your Digimon as well, then you get to reduce the play cost by 2 for every 5 cards in both players' trash. So you could essentially just hard play BT13, make a swing, hard play promo for basically nothing, because you already hard played BT13 for nothing, and make another swing. So that's how that works.
Okay.
Because does he have to? Yeah, so his on play, you get to delete one Digimon with there's that 13,000 DP or more, and then if it didn't delete anything, then you get a recover. So if there was anything on the opponent's field between the two Gallants and the Megidra, there reasonably shouldn't be anything on the opponent's field. So it's just a pretty cute deck. I think it's pretty solid. I haven't done any testing with this myself, but it looks really good. Make sure to get your promo Gigimons from store tournament packs. Um, that's probably the best card in this current wave of store tournament packs.
Yes, I believe so.
Because I just finished my playset at locals the other day. So I guess like after this, we could probably talk about like our locals experience testing out the new set because I think that might be important.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, that was Nerd Rage, and then we have PPG. So it's definitely still cool that we can get data. I always like data, but with the way that Bandai's been changing things, so to speak, um, it definitely makes it a lot harder to collect and calculate the data. Before it was pretty easy, literally only coming from one place, and now it's all scattered, and it's up to stores if they even want to try to report the data. Maybe I should actually look at the Discord. No, I don't think stores would post their results to the judges' Discord, but I should probably check there regardless, see if there's anything fun in there.
I was
Uh,
gonna say, are we not able to use the app itself and like look at the store events and then see the placings of that, or no?
I don't think I tried that. That might be a thing.
Because yeah, because like you have to submit your deck list through the app. So
Yeah, but I don't know if you're not part of the tournament, if you could just look at the results like limitless.
oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's the only concern is like I don't think they allow that, which is why I was thinking like maybe on the judges Discord, uh maybe stores post it or judges post it. Let me check that real quick. I haven't popped in there in a while. Premier event deck lists. Looks like that channel is pretty dead because the last thing that was posted was play TCG for One Piece 1 day ago. And then outside of that, it was over 30 days old with Dragon Ball Super Finals deck lists. So yeah, they nobody's been posting on the judges Discord. Unfortunate. Would have been nice to have a place where it was posted. But yeah, so PPG. We have their breakdown. This was a 32 person event. So there are two different levels. I don't know how stores are measured on what level they get. So you're either a 32 or a 64. So this is obviously a little bit smaller of an event. We do have the full meta breakdown. So the two most represented decks was Sakuyamon and Gallantmon, followed by Purple Hybrids and Armor Rush. So, and Royal Knights and Cross Hearts were tied for three. Or they had three people playing each of those, so they were tied for second place. Um, so yeah, again, the majority of these decks again just didn't really get a whole lot of updates. Out of the top like one, two, three, four, five, six, out of the top six decks, the most represented decks that made up more than half the event was still older decks. Just throwing that out there, keeping it in mind. And as far as decks with updates, it was literally just Armor Rush and Cross. I think like Gallant, pure Gallant, isn't using a lot of the new Gallant tools. I think most of that's like designed more so for Megidramon.
Yeah, it's definitely more Megidra focused. I think even the tamer himself is more Megidra focused as well.
Yeah. And then as far as some of the other decks, it was Hunters, Blue Hybrids, and Red Purple Imperial. So that's out of a 32-person event. That's all of the decks people have brought. So that's 9 different decks out of a 32-person event. Keep that in mind. That's like I've only been saying the meta's kind of been shrinking, and even with a good set like BT21, it just didn't seem like it had enough impact to warrant people wanting to play and experiment with other things. And if they are, it's at such a low number that they barely even register. Um, but yeah, so Doom posting aside, we do have their Facebook image actually has percentages. Oh, there was other decks. I think there was 6 decks with one. Yeah, there were 6 decks that had one person playing it each, because in their top 8 breakdown, I guess that was 15 decks out of a 32, 15 different decks out of a 32-person event. So it's something. XL was one of those off decks because XL actually managed to make it up into top 8. But their top 8 breakdown is 2 purple hybrids, 2 galacties, 1 XL, 1 blue hybrid, probably red base as well, 1 armor rush, and 1 galacti, and galacti ended up winning it. Again, hard to remove body, plus tamer hate, plus it can move fast when it's properly set up. It just looks very solid. We could even take a look at the deck list. Again, shocker, it's very close to what I theory crafted in YouTube. I think I was one of the first people to actually post it. It's interesting to note that they're on the Sumimon egg. I value the card draw personally, but I guess they just want the extra DP just to try to maybe win DP wars, because this deck really doesn't win DP wars very often. Not when you have like Gaiamon that could be 21k pretty easily.
Yeah, I think the reason is because of the whole the fact that Galactic not only can be used as an aggressive tool, it could be used as a defensive tool. So I guess the more DP for like countering DP minus and all that stuff, or just getting swung over, is kind of like what maybe some of these players are thinking.
Yeah. I mean, like it's gonna be a very standardized list. You're just running like the new Venmons on top of a slew of the old Venmons. How many Venmons is this person actually running?
So this one is running 20 for the PPG.
Wow. That's less than I thought. When I was talking with Lychee, he's just like, yeah, 22 to 24 is probably the safest numbers you could run. So, I mean, hey, if the deck is finding success with 20, who am I to say otherwise? It's just when I was talking with Lychee, based on the old build, that was the math that he had used, where the idea was you want 2 full Galacties. You want to have the potential to do 2 full Galacties. That was the idea. So, 22 gives you usually enough of a buffer to be able to achieve that. But, I mean, if it's working with only 20, it's working with only 20.
Yeah, because I will say the Nerd Rage one event, that one also looks like it's a 20 as well.
Okay. So, I mean, the math could have very easily changed because of the new Galacti tools.
Because they are a little bit more search reliant consistency, I guess maybe is the idea.
Yeah. No, and because, yeah, you do have more different Venmons. You still have your Fusion Eyes. You have the new Zenith, and stuff that is asking for, like, Venmon in text, or Galactic in text, or whatever. I think it's Venmon in text is what they use.
Yeah, Fitmon and Tex.
Yeah, so that gives you a little bit more flexibility on what you could grab and what you could use. So, solid list. Not really much else to it. And then I guess the Gallantmon, let's just see how PPG labeled it. It actually is a Gallantmon X. And as far as the new Guilmon tools, they are using none of them. Bless you.
Sorry, thank you.
Yeah, so they're using, like, Gallantmon is not using any of the new Guilmon tools. It doesn't need it. As we theorized, just wanted to double check. Tyler was on Purple Hybrids. What was he cooking? Uh,
Oh,
it's very classic Purple Hybrids. The only tech which we kind of theorized was Arrestor as far as like new cards, and then he was also running Gallant because your Vulgar your Vulgarmon can end up being 13k to meet their requirements for um, Gallantmon the promo. And then the other big tech that they're using is Mimi. So they are using Mimi to try to hose on the opponent's options because, against Sakuyamon, they're expecting to pay 0 for their options, and now they have to at least pay 1 for it, and that could throw off some of their math, at least like in that type of a matchup, or just turning a training or some of those other options into a 3-cost option can really screw up their math. So I think it's a solid card. And then on the flip side, it also makes your like Rivals Barrage basically a 6-cost. A lot of your calling is free for the most part. Paired
Jack
up,
Raid is
yeah,
another
Jack Raid
bonus
is an
one.
extra +1. And then your Memory Boost is again just basically now a training card. So I think Mimi is going to be a good staple tech going forward for where the current direction of this meta is. And it's funny how old that card is too.
Yeah, it's a BT2 card, if anything.
I thought she. Oh yeah, it is because BT. No, it's either BT2 or BT4.
Oh no, it's BT2. I have PTSD from my local player playing SetCon.
Okay. Oh, it was Kari that was BT4. Because
Mm-hmm.
Kari is another cute like tamer that they could run to try to like floodgate the opponent, slow them down, because when they start dealing damage, then Kari could just start gaining you memory. You don't really have many ways to trigger it yourself, but you don't care. It's just there to slow the opponent down. But Mimi being a more efficient tamer to do that, and with options costing very little at this point, Mimi just feels like it's the better tech. You do have to note that with delays, Mimi cannot tax the delays. So if the card's already on the field, Mimi will not tax the delayed ability. Just pointing it out there so any people who are listening can understand that ruling.
Yeah, because honestly, because if you pair Mimi and Digimon Emperor together, like it is such a powerful taxing your opponent kind of just 2 tamers on the field kind of situation with just those 2, in my opinion.
Yeah, and the thing that people are curious on the most, which is Excel actually making it into top 8. I'm pulling that up, and it's classic Excel. I really don't know what to say. You're just playing all of your Excel cards at 4 of for everything. Then you're teching in 1 Ultimate Chaosmon and 1 Chaosmon. Then you're also teching in Darkdramon Ace, because that's pretty good. You could go on top of the Heavy Leo if you really wanted it to, or you could just hard play it and it does stuff. Like it's just a good card. That and like it's another mega for Ultimate Chaosmon. And then when Ultimate Chaosmon has partition, it splits it out, and then you get its on play effect again. So very very good card. I think I have a copy in front of me that I could look at.
Yeah,
Cause
I
yeah,
got
it's
one.
on play is Digivolve, and then it just has Scapegoat. So those are 2 very strong effects. And then it also
Well,
deletes all of the opponent's Digimon with the lowest play cost, so it's a pseudo board wipe. And if they only have 1 big thing on their field, then it just outs their big thing. As far as their tamers go, they're split on analog and the BT1 TK. So BT1 TK could just grab anything from security, memory setter, analog youth. just a generic searching tool because the deck kind of struggles with search power. So analog is just a easy fix for that. And then they're running 4 Singularity Chaos because, when they get up into 1 Mega, Singularity Chaos kind of just does work. And then because of how Singularity Chaos operates, it allows you to actually use the partition on your Ultimate Chaos Mons. So just a very good card for how your Chaos Mons work. And then let's not forget Vulgarmon is the main Chaos Mon that they're running because it's pseudo Floodgate. As I said, Floodgates are good, protection's good. Like, I really don't know what else to say.
Yeah, it's just like one of those decks. Like, it's like really low end cards, but I will say like a good majority of them that go into the top end stuff, they do have like some really powerful effects and everything. You might not think about it at first, but then you combine it with the partition, and then it goes, oh, that's how it's abusing this and everything. Especially with the option card that allows it to delete its own body, so allowing you to partition multiple times is ridiculous.
Yeah. So, based on these events, you could kind of start gauging where the meta is going to be, even though we don't have like super concrete data for it. I don't think there's any like nominal updates that Japan has, so not even gonna waste my time looking for that. But yeah, so that's the meta. Moving on to the second topic, we actually, speaking of meta and it being stale and oppressive, we do have a new regulation battle. So, Jay Stewart, if you want to read the rules for the new regulation battle.
Yeah, so the rules are at least 30 cards in your deck must have one of the following types: DM, NSP, DS, NSO, WG, and Excel. If you guys don't know what this is, these are the decks that Bandai was trying to kind of push out since EX7. It was like kind of started out with NSP at first. I think NSP has like the most support out of all these, but unfortunately, it's just not that very good. And like the two decks that stand out to me from this is Excel and DS, Deep Sabers, as it's also known, because the theme is supposed to be it's supposed to be related to the LCD toys, the little Digivice things.
Yeah, so essentially what they're saying is there's 6 playable decks. Sure, you could include cards outside of the decks, but it all boils down to there's 6 playable decks. I don't know how good uh, DM is gonna be. I don't even remember what it stands for, but Nightmare Soldiers isn't. I would say Nightmare Soldiers could be a third or fourth place pick, but I do think like Excel and Deep Savers, out of what we really know, are very much the two strongest ones. Then probably Nightmare Soldiers, followed by Nature Spirits and Wing Guardians. Wing Guardians has good consistency tools, but Wing Guardians just as a deck kind of feels very lacking compared to the others. Maybe EX9 can help fix that. It looks like we're getting some Wing Guardian support in there. So far, what we've seen really isn't that good, but they could very easily get their Ace and X antibody, and that could change a lot. I mean, I guess they technically have their Ace. It's what is it? Is it an LM?
Or which one?
Uh, Wing Guardians, because yeah, it's the LM. Because a lot of other decks got some updates either as like a promo or an LM card. So maybe in BT or EX9, there's going to be a box topper with even more Wing Guardian support because boy, do they need it. But yeah, so 6 playable decks for the next event. I believe it takes place in like at the end of May. So feel free to correct me if I'm wrong in the chat. But I believe this event starts towards the end of May. We don't have any pricing on it as of right now. It literally is kind of like shadow dropped in the Bandai Premium app. So that's where I got the information.
Real quick, do you think stands for Dark Masters?
No, because it's the Digivice stuff.
No, it can't be.
It's the first.
Yeah.
It's the first set of Digivice. I think it stands for Digital Monsters. Like literally, I think it actually stands for
Oh,
digital
it's the
monsters.
EX. Yeah, it's the
It's
EX9.
EX9. Yeah, because this is coinciding with EX9, which is why it's releasing like at the end of May. So that way, when we get the set, uh,
Well, that
it's good to go.
well, if that's the case, it's not technically six decks. Then it's actually like 10 or 11 because DM. There's like various different ones. There's like DM 1 through 5. I think there's even a DM 6. Maybe I don't know for sure, but yeah, there's like
I
six. So
I
like there's
totally forgot about that.
yeah, because like each one's got like its own kind of theme and everything, I guess, or something of how it wants to work.
Yeah, I do like the bordering for the DM cards. I will say the bordering being a completely different color than what the card actually is probably going to get a little annoying. I mean, granted, you're actually supposed to be looking at the text box of the card to see what the color representation actually is, but just from the onset, the first thing that you're going to look at is the border, and it's a completely different color than the card is going to probably throw a couple of people off. So pay attention to that. But
Yeah,
yeah,
because like
DM is
yeah,
looking to be really weird because of the training mechanic and working with like face down inheritables. And it wants to like flip them face up, it feels like. I don't know what the payout is going to be to see if it's even remotely good, or if they're even going to have megas. Because if I remember correctly, like the first wave of Digivice toys, they didn't. Megas wasn't even a concept.
yeah, no, not really, because I think the only time that megas were a thing was kind of like Digimon World 1, and that was like only Machine Digimon, and that was like kind of the boss guy.
Yeah, even
So
if you like think about all the different megas you see in Adventure 01, like the OG, you don't see that many megas either. The majority of the
yeah,
cast
'cause you
doesn't
have
even get their megas.
yeah, because you have the Dark Masters, Venom Ionismon, uh, Wargreymon, Metal Garurumon, Edamon, Metal Enamon was in there. I think that was it. Just
I
seven
think
or
maybe there's
eight.
like one more that we're probably missing, but yeah, there was not a lot of mega level Digimon at the early stages of Digimon, so I have no idea if that's going to
Gigimon, that's
translate.
who are,
Oh yeah, Gigimon was a mega. Um
but he
yes,
wasn't like mega power level like the others are.
no, he was like the Professor Oak styled character. So, yeah. Uh, make sure if you're planning on playing in the regulation battle. I mean, obviously these are just supposed to be for fun, newer player stuff. Um, so don't take it too seriously. None of these decks are incredibly high power level, so it'll be another low level, like low power level format, which is fine. Just more alternative ways to play Digimon. It just sucks that it feels like they're limiting us to like maybe 6 to 10 decks total, and like half of it feels like it's literally coming from the newest set. So it's like, I don't know how I feel about that. Because EX9 is also going to support more than just DM and Wing Guardians. Like, I know that for a fact.
Yeah,
So,
it's going to be interesting because Wing Guardian's biggest problem is they don't have a end game. They don't have a boss for a payout for doing everything it wants to do. I mean, the others have something, if even if they're not good.
yeah, they at least have like level 7 DNA that does stuff, and like Nature Spirits theirs is pretty mediocre compared to uh Deep Savers and Nightmare Soldiers. So, who knows? Maybe they're going to get more support in EX9. Like we're still in early spoiler season for that, so who knows what we're actually going to get and what it's going to turn out. And it's not like we have Japan to look at anymore to see if what's actually going to be good. So start practicing that if you're interested in playing in that type of event. Start collecting your cards now so you could be as prepared as possible. I can already tell you for that event, I'm playing Excel. What are you thinking about playing for it?
For this event, I don't know. It's gonna vary on what they actually do with the DM stuff. But if there's nothing like really too exciting from DM, the one that's gonna stand out to me is Deep Savers and probably even just Excel itself too. I mean, I'm not normally a yellow green player, but I mean, I had fun playing Excel during pre-release, so I got the cards. Why not?
Yeah, I literally have like almost the fully constructed Excel deck sitting in front of me. Same thing with Chronicles, but obviously
Yeah.
Chronicles is based on the manga, not the toys. So Chronicles is not going to be a supported deck for this event.
Yeah.
So,
Because like the only thing that's holding me back from Deep Savers is the promo Seedramons, and I think I only have one of that.
oh, you don't need it.
So it's like, oh, I don't. Well, who knows? Or maybe I
No,
actually
that like
will.
if you look at a lot of decks, the majority of them don't even run that because like it's a good card, but it's 100% like a win more type card. So most people are using the Deep Saver Siegramon and then the Rush Siegramon, where it's like it has jamming as an inheritable and then it just has Rush. So that way, when you spit it out due to an effect, you could just swing with it right away. Which is essentially the same thing that the promo is doing. And then, like, the other weird thing is you have the overlapping of ability where it's just like you have conflicting effects between the promo and the fields security option. So there's some slight hiccups there. So it's not a bad card to have. It's just not needed for the deck, and you could very easily work around not having it. I think in my YouTube video I did do the builds without it, or I at least gave a substitution and highlighted the substitution. But there's probably more up to date Deep Saver lists out there that people could look at.
Yeah, because I'm thinking yeah. 'Cause I thought there was some like I thought the like promo was needed because it has the inheritable to give anything that's played out rush or something like that. But maybe I'm wrong on that.
Yeah, I mean, if you're just playing the Rush Siegermon, it accomplishes effectively the same thing. So that's why I'm saying, like, you realistically don't need it. Especially in a lower power format, like, you're probably just fine without it, to be honest. I think, like, the only weird part is. I don't even think it'll be weird, like, getting to 30 cards with the traits, because that leaves you with 20 cards for like various other tech cards. I know like sometimes like Deep Savers as another example to pick on them. They realistically don't need as many of their own native cards as they tend to have or want to run or like was pre-built into it. So like I don't know. I think that's a little and Nightmare Soldiers is even worse because god, you're only ever using the purple cards for Nightmare Soldiers and then everything else is like, yeah, this is just generic good purple stuff. So, Nightmare Soldiers actually might be a little bit worse for that than we might have thought. Because they're
Yeah, and it
forced
just
to
kind of
run more of their cards. At least like the Deep Savers, because their colors are a little bit more limited, they have easier availability at some of their better tech.
or even just like because a lot of the deep savers is still it's just all blue, that you could still just use generic training cards to just compare to like a lot of the other decks that are multicolors.
Yeah, I'm looking more so at the 30 card stipulation because, like, I don't even think Nightmare Soldiers just using all of the purple cards hits 30. So, like, it forces them to run a secondary Nightmare Soldier line, which is already being suboptimal for the deck. So, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see, like, what actually does well, what the rest of EX9 holds in store, if it's going to upgrade all of them or if it's just going to upgrade Wind Guardians. But yeah, so it'll be fun when we get it. And I kind of hope that they continue doing the Sakura flower bordering that we got with the Edamon and the Biomon. I think having a very distinctive style of bordering that's cohesive through all of the regulation battles probably would be a nice thing, so that way we could like have an easier identifier on like, hey, that was a regulation card. Nice. But that's just me personally. I highly doubt that they will, but I like
You
cohesion.
never.
Yeah, you never know. I just personally like cohesion. make things easier to identify, makes things easier to, identify. Yeah, so that's the news portion. So we did meta, we did news. So I guess we're into the big topic, which is what do you think Digimon would have to do to be able to attempt to reach Pokemon's popularity?
So for me personally, this is gonna be like I don't as much as I would love it to. At this point in time, there's no way for Digimon to catch up to Pokemon, but there is definitely ways they could shorten that gap between the two. So I think one of the biggest things is the fact that the Pokemon has a constant anime that's constantly coming out, like almost barely a year gap and everything. But if you compare like Digimon Ghost and then you compare with what's that new one that's coming out? That they tease and everything. I can't remember.
Beat Breaker?
Yeah, Beat Breaker. Like look at the year gap between those and everything, or even look at the gap before because what was it? It was that reboot of Digimon Adventures with the Digimon Ghost Stories, or did they also happen at the same time? I can't remember.
Adventures reboot came out in 2020, like basically along with the Digimon card game. And then Ghost Games was 2 years after that in 2022.
But yeah, it's like there's like various gaps in the anime because the other downside is too is like I'm not trying to say that even if they created more anime, it still wouldn't help because it's got to be like they got to have like a presence. They got to make it known that this exists and everything. So like they would also need to increase a lot of their advertisement in. I would say they need to start advertising also to kids and everything too, kind of like what Pokemon does and everything. Like if you think about like a lot of the old commercials and everything that they did, I mean, there was like tons of like commercials I saw of Pokemon trading card game where it was like showing off kids that were playing the game. There was Yu-Gi-Oh trading card games that were showing off kids playing the game. Digimon, nothing like that whatsoever. So it's like they need to advertise that it's not only like it's a wide audience of people. Like a lot of the commercials that they've been making for the Digimon trading card game has kind of been towards the older audience, which they're trying to capitalize on. Like the people that have grown up on Pokemon and maybe are like dissatisfied with Pokemon storytelling or just wanting something more mature and everything.
What I mean, you're not wrong on that. A lot of their advertisement has been like 20s to 30s, which are basically, yes, the people who grew up with Digimon. That's basically Digimon's current target market is um people who already grew up with Digimon. It doesn't feel like they're trying to capture new fans. And I think like that's probably, I would agree with you, that's one of their biggest missed opportunities. The constant stream of something going on. I agree with you also. What made Pokemon as popular and big as it is literally the nonstop bombardment of marketing and advertising. They always have a game in the works. They always have card game in the works. They always have an anime going at all times. Like they're just firing on all cylinders and just keep pumping fuel into that machine so that way it just nonstop is going. And that's why it skyrocketed to as popular as it was because the machine has never stopped. And if it has stopped, it was a very small break. So yeah, like if Digimon really wants to capture on their current release schedule to really make 2025 like the hypest year, they have to follow it up with more stuff or just as much stuff as last year. Like, granted, okay, so let's just say your average Digimon show is 50 episodes. 50 episodes is almost a full year cycle for seasonal anime, assuming it's 12 episodes like per core or like per season. So that gets you roughly about a full year. So, but again, they need to do more. Like once that ends, they can't just stop. Or they shouldn't stop if they want to continue the IP to grow. And I think like maybe whatever the next Digimon's going to be after Beat Breakers, maybe that should age not age down the characters, but age down the target audience. Try to capture new fans and kind of do what Pokemon does and just like, yeah, this is the target age that we're always targeting. If you just so happen to grow up with it, you just so happen to grow up with it. I like that Digimon acknowledges that we grew up with it, but I don't want it to be so alienating that it doesn't allow new players to come in.
Yeah, because even looking at the video games too and everything, like, because here's like another thing that Pokemon really kind of has over, like, Digimon is like, look at the video games, not just the video games, but the platforms they're on. The new Digimon Cyber Sleuth game is coming out on PlayStation, Stream, I think Xbox too, if I remember correctly. It's
Yeah.
not coming on the Nintendo Switch, and kids are more on the Nintendo Switch than they are on a PS5. Because, parents are going to be like, oh, it's a portable system. I could get my kids. It's cheaper than the others. It's like parenthood mentality is I can get the kid a Switch versus like a $200 more system and everything. So it's like that's kind of like where it's also the downside. I mean, you could take a look at the Cyber Sleuth and Hacker's Memory. They're now on the Switch, but they came out 2+ years after they were already out on the other systems and everything. And the
No,
fact that
you're
it's
right.
again not advertised to kids, because I mean, look at the characters of the older, like, it's more mature story and everything. Like, I love that and everything. It's just like there's nothing about the character or the story that the kids could understand or grasp or even relate to. Like, look at how Pokemon does his story for the most part. Oh, you're a 10-year-old boy. Here's a Pokemon that could destroy cities. Go out there and capture the rest of them. Like, that's literally how it is. But then you look at Digimon, it's like so complex that there's no way kids could really grasp it or understand it properly, so to say, so they could easily lose interest.
Yeah, I think like it's okay to be telling more mature stories, but I think you do have to mix it up with some of the more lighthearted stories. Like, as much as people hate Appmon, I loved Appmon because that's what it felt like Appmon was trying to do. It was trying to target a younger audience to get them attached to these characters, and then they could grow up with the characters and whatnot. And ideally, Atmon would have been a more expanded idea, but it flopped hard because Bandai is Bandai, and they don't know how to market and continue the growth and support that an IP or property would need. They just have a big history of that. So it's just unfortunate that Bandai has some of the best IPs that they just completely mismanage and don't know how to use. We've heard from developers in the past on the video game side of things that, like, yeah, it's incredibly hard to get a Digimon game greenlit. And I think, like, that's part of the problem. Like, you have an anime that's coming out, you have a game that's coming out, you're firing on all cylinders, and you just literally just need to do it again next year. Like, they can pump out Dragon Ball and One Piece games every year just to hold on to the license so other companies can't do that for video games. Why isn't Digimon just part of that? Like, why can't you just make a Digimon game each year? Like, it could be as formulaic as Pokemon, where it's just like, yeah, we really aren't changing the core systems and mechanics that much. And I feel like that was part of Digimon's big problem, was it always reinvented itself every single time. And I think that was the problem because it lost overarching identity. We saw that with the transition from Adventure to Zero Two, where it's like you have your traditional evolutionary line to a non-traditional one. Then you go from Tamers to Frontier. Tamers, traditional evolution line. Frontier, non-traditional evolutionary line. Like, it creates confusion between players, and younger audiences, like you said, would fall off. The other thing I thought of when you were saying it is Digimon not being on the Switch 2. The Switch 2 probably has the hardware capabilities to run the new Digimon game. But you want to know something that I thought of? Like, we could take that a step further, and why can't they just port the mobile app that we'll eventually get to the Switch? Like I've seen on the PlayStation Network and even on the Xbox Store, and it's obviously on Steam. Like you have mobile games on these platforms with like PC builds. I play Zenless Zone Zero. That's technically a mobile game on my PlayStation 5. Like,
Yeah, because there is.
why can't Digimon just have a port of their mobile game for consoles and all consoles? Like, think how big that would be to make your game more accessible.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely in agreement with that because I mean, take a look at Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Masters. Not only does it work on your phone, it works on the PS4 or the PS5. I know for a fact. I don't know about PS4,
Oh, it
but
works on PS4.
like,
That's how my brother plays
oh,
it.
yeah, it even works on PS4 then, I guess. So it's like it very clearly easily works on all these other systems, and there's like so many opportunities for Bandai to just make some like like it's not. I don't want to say it can be. There's no way it can be that hard to port a game from being mobile to be on console if Konami was able to do it and make make your mobile app and because like I've done it before where whatever I do on the mobile app will be recognized on the PS5 version.
I
So
guess
like if
it
I pull
really just
cards,
depends on the engine, to be honest. Like I know Bandai is all up in control, so it's on their own special little engine that I felt like they were developing. Um so I have no idea what engine that is or what they would use, but it's literally just an engine thing on like can we test it on this environment and can it be ported to other environments? So it takes a tiny bit of extra effort, um, and then testing it on dev kits of all of the different consoles. But again, it's just a tiny bit extra effort for a potential bigger payout.
yeah, because like the more people that you could get to play, like because people who have just the Nintendo Switch or Switch 2, like they're gonna most likely be playing just those. Like not a lot of people are gonna be having multiple consoles. Like I have a Nintendo Switch and a PS5, yes, but I don't have a gaming PC. I don't have an Xbox like other people might have.
Unfortunately, I have literally everything, but that's because I was I was more into video games. I very much have not been playing video games as much as I would like to, especially owning all of this stuff. I barely even touch my Xbox. I need to try to fix that, but Xbox also needs to make games for me to play. Their fault, not mine.
But yeah, I think like the biggest thing is Digimon needs to have more of a social presence, like more of a reoccurring presence. It's the biggest thing if they want to try to shorten the gap between the two. There was something else I was gonna say. Like I kind of forgot.
No, because like my big thing studying like business management and marketing and like trying to be in the industry before I swapped over to try to be more into the TCG side of or like tabletop side of things because oh boy, being a digital developer for a video game right now sucks. I don't know, you probably haven't seen it, and the rest of this audience hasn't seen it, but Alana Pierce did a video a couple of days ago, um, and she highlighted the issues with the current state of video games, and like part of it might be why we aren't seeing as much Digimon video games, but I don't know the correlation between U.S. stock markets and Japan. So I'm not all up on that side of things to know if we actually have an influence on what they end up making out of Japan. I don't want to
Well,
think we
I will
do, but
I will say because I did kind of had to do a lot of data research projects for a lot of different things. Like literally, I had to compare like how Bandai video games could be a lot higher in the U.S. And funny enough, like Japan's obviously number one when it comes to video games, like in the regions, but the United States we're number two in everything. So like we have more influence versus other regions, so to say.
uh yeah, I'm not going to say no to that. That does sound pretty correct. Um it's just
I do
referring
remember the other thing
to
I was going to say.
oh, yeah, go ahead. Shoot.
Yeah, so I think the other thing, and I think this is the biggest thing is that everyone probably has also said is like Bandai has their too many eggs in their basket and everything. They're kind of doing the whole Bushy Road situation, so to say. So it's like we could talk about how they can increase like their presence and everything all we want, but the fact that they're focusing on so many TCGs and everything, like they're spreading themselves out too thin, it's only going to make more burden of work for them if they're stretching themselves out too thin and they're already doing this much as they are, so to say.
No, I
It's,
100% agree with that. I think like each TCG is attempting to try to capture a different market. That's what it feels like, but like TCG players is all the same market. So it's just like, oh, this is like Union Arena is supposed to be a competitor to Weiss Schwartz. Well, Weiss Schwartz already is a competitor to like every card game. So you saying that this niche that's already in competition with other niches, that's all part of the niche of TCGs, yeah, that it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. That's probably not how they're looking at it, but I do think them having like 6, 7 projects is spreading themselves way too thin. We've seen other companies like crash and burn all of the other support because it was just too much for them to handle. Literally, like you said, Bushy Road is like one of the biggest teachers of that, where I think in their prime, they had 4 to 5 card games going, and they could barely handle that. And here's Bandai saying, hold my beer, let me do another one, and taking 2 more shots, and now we have like 6, 7. It's like, really? You have Wizards of the Coast. They could barely handle 2. Like, they had Transformers, which failed. Well, it didn't like fail. Um, Bush,
it was a few years before it stopped getting support.
yeah, they eventually said this just like I literally think they said this just isn't profitable enough. Like it's profitable, but not profitable enough. So they just canned it. That's what Bushy Road did with a lot of their card games, like Buddy Fight. It just wasn't profitable enough, even though it was making the money. So they just said we're cutting it. Then Bandai or not Bandai. Wizards of the Coast also tried Kaijudo, and they stopped that one because the developers got bored. They were just like, yeah, no, we're just tired of making this. So they stopped that for that reason. Not exactly the best reason to stop a card game, but I mean, it's a reason, I guess. But yeah, they just couldn't handle 2. That's why Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh only ever have had their own, like they are their own card game. Like they don't need to try to make a second one. They just need to focus on their main one, and that allows them to be like a stronger entity. Granted, I guess Yu-Gi-Oh is trying to splinter off into like Speed Duel and Rush Duel and some other stuff, but I think like they're just desperate to try to like reinvent themselves. Just because Yu-Gi-Oh is just such a mess of a game at this point.
Yeah, because it's mostly just like, oh, hey, how do we keep people from leaving the game? Well, people keep saying, oh, we're getting sick of all these 1 turn or 0 turn KOs and everything. It's like, okay, well, here's this version of the game. It's like, okay, well, that's not what we want. That's not fixing the actual problem. We don't want to spend more money on a product for.
A completely different game that just has the Yu-Gi-Oh name on it.
Yeah, exactly.
No,
And
and
then it's
then oh, go ahead.
Pokemon's. I was gonna say, Pokemon. It's kind of got like this. It's got Pokemon Pocket. It's like an alternative to its main game, but it's still a base version of what the main game is, so to say.
Yeah, all the skills are very transferable. Like I mean the only difference in like what the game's design is doing is Pocket being digital means that you don't need to have the energy in your deck, where in the TCG you just have the energy in your deck, and then depending on the deck, half the time the energy just does its own thing. So like I remember playing the Charizard deck, like a recent build of the Charizard deck, and basically it's just like, yeah, when you evolve into Charizard, take all of the energy that you need in order to make the attack out of your deck and throw it onto this card. It's just like, cool. So I don't even have to pay attention to energy all too much when it comes to the TCG. Again, it depends on the deck, but the skills are all very transferable because it's like point or reward based, prize based, technically. Um, EX Pokemon grant you more than basic or like base Pokemon. So like same stuff. But yeah, so I think like them doing like not putting their eggs in one basket definitely is a huge boon. So that way they could focus a little bit more on the the stuff that's actually doing well. Because another example, I hate to keep bringing up examples and beating this dead horse, is I Spy Entertainment. I don't even remember. But they were the makers of Force of Will, and they did one or two other card games, and then all of those crashed and burned. So yeah, like it's very hard for a company to run more than 1 to 2 games at most. I think like Bushy Road right now has 3, and they're not really looking to expand into anything else at the moment, at least as far as I'm aware of.
Yeah,
So
I'm not aware of it either.
yeah, I think like looking at the data based on events and like what I've seen just being in the Bandai sphere, I think right now Dragon Ball Super Masters might be the next one on the chopping block. I don't I'm not going to say how well that game is doing, but I think compared to Fusion World, it is doing significantly worse. Um
Yeah, because that I'm I mean no offense against like Dragon Ball players or anything, but it's like kind of a little confusing that you have Fusion Worlds and then you have the what's the other one just called? Like you have two different
Masters.
TCGs.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
Dragon
like you
Ball
have two
Super
different
Masters.
yeah, there's two different TCGs of the same IP. Like that's both trying to get support and everything. It's like it feels like you're kind of forcing your Dragon Ball fans to pick one or the other. Like I mean, if you could support both, you could support both. I guess it's just you're. It's kind of like what you said. You're competing for the same market of. You're like trying to both appease. Like each one's trying to appease to both Dragon Ball fans. It's like you're just like I don't know. It's like you're just like killing your own consumer markets by making them split up and everything.
Oh, right. So if they kill Masters, condense Masters with Fusion World, and then that opens up a little bit more opportunity for all of their others to grow because now they have one less game that they're putting on their printers that they all do in house. So like I think as awful as it sounds for the people who do like Masters, like I feel like if they cut Masters and allocate the resources to all of their concurrent stuff and just keep don't make anything new, just keep their concurrent lineup, I think Bandai as a whole can probably make themselves stronger as a result. And by in turn, that makes Digimon stronger. But again, I also feel like they need to push Digimon a little bit more because they've been doing such a lazy job at it. From a TCG perspective, we should have more starter decks, more demo decks, more more events would obviously be nice because like right now we just have this lack of big events, and I think like that's kind of a problem. Like it's nice that we have store events to try to make up for it, but like we still want the big premier premium events. So
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. Did you go to Nats the year One Piece TCG came out?
yeah,
Just out of
I've
curiosity.
been to every single Nats except for the first one, which was online.
So correct me if I'm wrong on this, but during the year that One Piece was out and everything, like the when you walk through the doors or something, like before you walk into the building, there was like a giant poster or something, and it was just only advertising One Piece. If I remember seeing a photo correctly, is that correct?
I mean, they were obviously heavily pushing One Piece, but
But yeah,
yeah,
it's like that's kind of like another thing too. It's like you have all these other TCGs. Why are you not advertising for them? Why is One Piece the only one you're showing off here?
Yeah, because like the not really
Because
big,
how would
the thing that Bandai does is they will do a very heavy, like heavy marketing push towards their newest thing, and everything else kind of gets sidelined. So we're going to be seeing that with Gundam in a moment because Gundam's about to come out.
Oh
And
God, I
that's
forgot about
yeah,
that.
that's going to absolutely dominate the first nationals because remember our nationals are split into nationals A and nationals B. Um so we get two of them. And if you do get your invite in the first wave, you could bank it and use it for Nationals B if you really wanted to. But I'm expecting them to for like Gen Con and whatnot to do a very heavy Gundam marketing push. Like extraordinarily heavy. Maybe not as heavy as Battle
I
Spirits,
definitely
but
no, I could definitely see it because Gundam is like, if I remember correctly, Gundam is like Bandai's like peas and carrots to them. Like it is their main big IP that they have and everything. Because like think about this. Like Gundam has an anime, it has movies, it has model kits. Like and already it was dominating from just that alone. And already this last year, they've already introduced, hey, we're coming out with a Gundam TCG. Oh, we're also doing a Gundam Warhammer now too. On top of that, it's like Gundam is like Bandai's bread and butter. It's like kind of one of the IPs that made Bandai, so to say.
yeah, but they also haven't been super consistent with their anime releasing either. Even though Sunrise Studio basically does almost all of Gundam, it's weird that they just don't have Gundam like anime being pumped out almost 24/7. I get maybe they contracted out to do other things based on the money. The anime market is a very slippery slope, so I'm not going to pretend like I know what I'm talking about considering like each anime literally gets its own committee assigned to it and then like based on how that committee was formed they'll ask and look for a studio depending on how much ownership each company has in that. So like the way anime is generally made is like this committee's formed and then the reason why the committee exists even though like instead of like one sole entity taking upon the risk is because they could divvy up the risk between multiple different avenues and it's almost like companies are crowdfunding animes in a sense. Like that's probably the best way I could explain it. I'm sure there's YouTube videos that are able to explain it way better than I am here, but maybe that's partially why we don't necessarily see a whole bunch of like consistency in the anime industry. I know part of it that is part of why we don't see a lot of consistency because you would think, hey, X anime is popular, we should do a season 2. No, they're contracted out by a different committee for a different anime. Cool, that's going to have to get put on the back burner. I think like maybe companies are going to have to take more risks and have a bigger piece of the pie when it comes to these committees to try to push things further and faster. So like I don't know how Pokemon is made in response cuz I know OLM generally makes the Pokemon anime, but they sometimes make other things too. So it's a very tricky subject, but the fact that they're able, like the Pokemon company is able to consistently pump out anime, like without skipping a beat, and if they're not pumping out an anime, they're pumping out a short on YouTube, at the very least. And then like
Yeah,
part of what made Pokemon big is just the firing on all cylinders across all multimedia platforms. Like you have books, you have TV show, you have the card game, you have the video game. Like it's just nonstop bombardment and that's something that Bandai really doesn't understand how to do very well. And like you could even see it with Battle Spirits on how heavy of a marketing push it was for how much of a failure that game ended up being.
yeah, because like they were like, I think it's been the only like Battle Spirits has been the only one to have like a cash prizing tournament, if I remember correctly,
That's because
so
they
far.
own the IP, and Japanese law states that you can't have cash prizing because then you're considered gambling. So that's they take that very seriously, and they apply that law to most places, even if it's not in Japan, because that is Japanese law.
Right. Because like I know some people were hoping that Digimon could have that, but Dragon Ball and
No,
like,
they'll never have cash
but yeah,
prizing.
yeah, and it was just like kind of like really sad, like how much dedication they were like pushing the Battle Spirits, and unfortunately, we just now see that Battle Spirits is kind of no more. It's like just like kind of crazy to think about, like how like if they had just gave like a tenth of what they did for Battle Spirits more into Digimon, like Digimon could have been just as successful as One Piece. Because there's people that say One Piece, like, oh, I love it for all these other different reasons and everything, and then you got like Gundam, or like not Gundam, Jesus, sorry, uh Digimon. It's got its unique, like everyone keeps saying Digimon has like a really great game mechanic and everything. So it's like just kind of, why couldn't you just give Digimon that little bit extra more love?
Yeah, it's because Bandai just doesn't know what they're doing when it comes to marketing. It's very blatantly obvious. Like, and I'm not even a marketing major. I have just studied marketing, and I can tell Bandai literally doesn't know what they're doing, and it might be a like a shareholder thing telling them what to do, or like what, or them literally just being incompetent. I'm not going to pretend like I know what the truth actually is. It's just from my perspective, in my opinion, it feels like they just don't know how to market their games. And that's like the biggest fault to Bandai as an entity, and why things aren't as successful as they could be, because things that they make could very easily be way more successful. It's just they don't know how to utilize that success and try to propel it forward to be even more successful. But yeah, so that's the big takeaway is if they just push the marketing of their game and have consistent marketing, I honestly think like Digimon could very easily grow into something a little bit more. But again, that requires more money, more effort, and right now Bandai is not looking to do that. But it's a very easy and simple solution. It's like me with the YouTube game. I know how to do better at YouTube, and the answer is just make more content. That is it. That is the big secret, is just make more content. It's the same type of thing here with marketing. How do I make my game do better? Just market more. Just pump out more Digimon. Just do more. Like, it's that easy. I mean, I say it like it is that easy, but conceptually, it's that easy. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, any other final thoughts, Jay Stewart?
The only other thing I could think of at this point is, after the Gundam TCG, I really hope Bandai is not about to introduce another TCG after it, because it just seems like every single year they just come out with a new IP at this point for TCG, and it's just kind of like, why, kind of thing.
Right. So, I mean, hopefully they could leverage Union Arena to be smarter, where it's just like, oh, instead of making a brand new, let's just say Naruto card game, like they just make a Naruto set for Union Arena. Like they could be
Yeah,
smarter about the resources and systems that they have, but they're not, I guess. So
I mean, this, I'm not too familiar on this, but correct me if I'm wrong. Doesn't Bandai have a My Hero Academia TCG, or is that a different company?
Um, Jasco was the one who was doing the licensing for My Hero in America, which is why when Bandai was doing My Hero for Chrono Cross, or not Chrono Cross, Chrono Clash, the My Hero set was never able to come out in America because Jasco owned the license. So
Okay.
even though they had the ability to make a My Hero card game for Chrono Clash, it just literally due to IP law was never able to come out here. So like people were importing that set when it did come out in Europe. So you're not off base or wrong. Like when it comes to that type of stuff and IP law, it's a very tricky and slippery slope. Um, which is why like Weiss Schwartz, certain sets are Japanese exclusive and American exclusive is because of IP law and whatnot. So yeah, it's all weird. But I think like with Digimon, it being mostly owned by Bandai, they should very easily be able to get around that. And I think like I don't want to say we should have Digimon crossovers because Pokemon really hasn't done crossovers and they're perfectly fine. To me, crossovers, like when a company starts doing crossovers, it's because of one of two things. One, the game is dying and they need to save it. And then from there, it does one of two things. Either A, it successfully saves it, or B, it continues to die because the IP didn't attract new enough players. Like that's why I'm very fearful for like Magic's futures because they are now hitting Fortniteization where it's just like, yes, we are willing to sacrifice our own game's identity to bring in other IPs and it's done nothing but piss people off except for the fact that it's the best selling stuff, but I don't know if they're retaining players because of it. But that's another like as my closing thought. Like that's another marketing tactic they could do. I don't necessarily think we need to do that. Digimon's not desperate enough to do crossovers. I don't.
Well, we know they've done crossovers because like there's a Godzilla Digimon. There's also
Yeah, but they
the
Digimonified them,
Mon-
and I'm okay with that. Like if they brought in like the Zinogre Garurumon, I would be okay with that because that is a labeled like they are acknowledging that as a Digimon. And it's more of a Monster Hunter reference at that point. Like it's not a true crossover per se.
Okay, yeah.
Same thing with
I mean,
Godzilla, like Godzilla War Greymon or whatever. Like that design is sick. I would love to see that as a Digimon card.
honestly, I would love to see that too.
Yeah, but it
Because
also
like
would
they
be
do
a
like
Digimon, and it would probably be put into the reference book as a Digimon, and would be fully acknowledged as a Digimon. It's not like, oh, this is actual Godzilla playing with my Digimon. Like, no, it's references. It's Digimon that are created to inspire the reference of the IP they are in quotation marks crossing over with.
yeah, because like what I was gonna say though was like you have that Godzilla one. You also have like a Monster Hunter kind of thing as well. Like for the Monster Hunter thing, I think they only made Digivices with it. It's like in the Godzilla, it's like, oh, there's some figurines of those. It's like, why aren't you doing more with those? Like, I think there's some people that would, like, I know I personally would love to get my hands on that War Greymon, uh, Godzilla thing, or even that Greymon Monster Hunter thing. I would love to see those as cards and everything, but they don't do that with it. Like, so when they do like a type of crossover, or however you want to call it, they're not doing enough with it.
Yeah, and that's going to like unifying their marketing where it's just like, hey, we have this entity that we created for this crossover event or crossover product. We could do more with it. And like that's part of the fact that they aren't, and that's what's stifling their growth. Like because they're being short-sighted. Granted, I don't know what IP law that they or like what the contract is that might state that they literally can't. I know like Godzilla as an example, they're very, very picky on how their IP is used to the point where it nearly killed Chrono Clash. Because Godzilla was just like, no, we don't want Godzilla fighting ninjas. We want Godzilla fighting Godzilla. That's it. So it basically made an entire set useless, but I digress. Leveraging what every facet of the card, like every facet of the IP, not just the card game and video game, the IP in itself, because we have so many other like comics and side stories that are like contracted out and official technically, that they're not even using. Like on like at Nationals, they gave us a Digimon comic there's characters in here that I would have loved to see as tamers, and the stories get fleshed out even more, or even a step further, potentially turned into an anime because, you know, they already have the story done. So like they're just
Like
it's just
I would love to see
mismanagement.
Chronicles.
Right, like think how cool a Chronicles anime would be. Like
Well,
honestly.
and here's even another thing. When's the last time you saw a Digimon comic at Barnes and Noble? Like a
Right.
manga book.
And
Like they
that's
don't
where
have
like
that.
yeah, that's where Pokemon's doing it well, because they at least have, like, for each generation, they do have a new protagonist and a new comic that goes alongside of it that follows a very loose story to what the games are telling. So like, again, we've already beaten and said this piece, like, Bandai literally is just not even doing enough with the IP to make it cohesive, for one, and utilizing the IP to the utmost potential to actually have it have a semblance of success and growth. So they are stifling themselves because they're not doing enough with their own stuff. And if anything, just take Pokemon's example, and you probably can start seeing a lot more success. Like, think how much cooler Digimon would be if every single year or every other year we had a new video game. Every year we had a continuation or a new anime. Like, they could just do more. And that's the moral of the story, is like, Digimon is such a good IP, and it's such a strong IP that has been completely and utterly mismanaged, like everything else that Bandai does. And all Bandai has to do is just do more. Like, just market more, make more, utilize all of the cross marketing and cross media to your overall benefit. And it's just sad that they're not, and they would rather just let their IPs rot and die rather than actually try to utilize them properly to ensure some level of growth. Like, they just want instantaneous success, and they want to put as little effort into it as possible. Sorry, that's not how the world works.
Yeah, because I mean, it's just kind of like it's like, how do I want to say this? Like, because like with Pokemon and everything, the way I see it is like this. Oh, you have your guaranteed. Oh, if you get a Charmander, you're gonna guarantee to get Charizard and everything. It's like, well, if I like Charmander but I don't like Charizard or something like that, like Digimon has like something so powerful than Pokemon is the fact that we have all these alternative branches of evolution and everything that you could go about. So like, not every Digimon, like every Digimon is unique compared to every Pokemon, so to say.
Well, the big difference is Digimon acknowledges growth. Pokemon doesn't. The only growth Pokemon acknowledges is when your Charmander evolves into Charmeleon and evolves into Charizard. And then the growth basically stops, and like, they really don't acknowledge that. Even the characters, like, if you go throughout Ash's whole journey, all the way from the very beginning to where he ended up being the champion, spoiler, I know, shocker. Ash did end up being the champion. He had zero character growth the entire time. He had good character moments, but he didn't have any actual growth. And Digimon as an IP is literally all about that growth. And I think
It's about that
that's
bond between the two.
I mean, that's just a common thing between, like, tamer stuff, is like the growth, the bond that you form with the monsters and whatnot. But like, the big thing that's supposed to separate Digimon is that growth aspect. You grow with this IP, and this IP will grow with you. But again, the problem is they don't have refreshers to bring in those younger audiences to be able to have that growth journey with. And I think, like, that's part of one of the bigger problems that we already highlighted. Um, but the fact that the IP literally is about growth and development, and like Bandai is doing anything but growing and developing it, I find to be extremely ironic, when it's just copy what Pokemon's doing and how good their multimedia marketing is. And Digimon could probably be not necessarily as successful, but like you put it, definitely
Yeah,
close the gap as much as possible.
and also bring over those Digimon plushies too that I see Japan has. Come on, let me get some of those too without having to travel to Japan.
Right. No, Japan's got a lot. Digimon's pretty big in Japan. I mean, it's not a surprise, but it would be nice for Bandai to just do more. That's all it takes. So I think that's all we got for this episode. Thank you everyone for coming out and listening. It means the absolute worlds to us hearing two guys yap about a children's IP that is actually surprisingly not about a children's IP, or for children anymore, I guess. So thank you all again, and again, feel free to make sure to do all of that social media doobly-doo stuff, and so you can stay up to date whenever we go live or upload next. Make sure to leave that comment for a question of the week, and we will see you next time. Later.